Chapter 312, 10% Shares, 2. For adult pigs, a maximum of 2.75 kilograms of pig feed should be fed per day. For piglets, they only need to eat about 0.35 kilograms, and they will slowly increase as they grow up. The total amount of feed per day for 120 adult pigs is 330 kg, while the total amount of feed per day for 50 piglets is 17.5 kg. So if they come every 3 days for pig feed, the total amount of pig feed will exceed 1,000 kilograms. There was no way they could move it in a few hours. After calculating for a while, Lu Jiu finally said, "Second brother, if you want to raise those pigs to more than 200 kilograms, you will need about 350 kilograms of pig feed every day. I think it is best to pick up the pig feed once every 2 days. I'll put them in 50 kg sacks, so there are 14 sacks in total." Li Lingyun pondered for a moment and said, "Okay, I will ask my friends to bring a bamboo basket so that they can move the pig feed faster." After reaching an agreement, Li Lingyun said, "Third sister-in-law, since you prepared the pig feed, I will give you 10% of the pig farm's shares." Lu Jiu knows that although raising pigs is very risky, it can also make a lot of money, so she did not refuse and said with a smile, "Thank you, second brother." As they finished with their discussion, Li Lingyun left Li Chenmo's house in a good mood. He not only obtained the pig feed formula, but also gained a good helping hand. He knew that his third sister-in-law must have added something to the pig feed besides the formula. Pigs would not be able to grow so fast if they only ate pig feed, so he asked her to prepare pig feed instead in exchange for the shares. At the same time, Han Yuheng was waiting in the brigade office. Not long after, a young man came up and said, "Comrade, everything is ready, please follow me." Hearing the young man's words, he stood up and followed him outside. When he saw a truck parked on the side of the road, he was startled and asked, "Comrade, are those the piglets?" The young man nodded and said, "Because there are too many piglets, we will use this truck to send you back." Han Yuheng felt happy after hearing what he said. He walked for 2 hours to reach the brigade office. It would save a lot of time if he took a truck. At first, he wanted to go back to the village, so people would notice he was sent back by the brigade with a truck. But considering that it would be troublesome to move the piglet to Li Chenmo's pig pen, he decided to let the young man send it there instead. "Then I will bother comrade with this matter," he said with a smile. Hearing his polite words, the young man smiled and said, "No trouble at all. Comrade, you can lead me the way." Because they took a truck, it only took them 20 minutes to reach Zai village. Because the road was too narrow for the truck to pass, Han Yuheng asked the young man to park the truck on the road near the river. It only takes 10 minutes to walk from where they live to Li Chenmo's pig pen. After parking the car, the young man asked, "Comrade, where is the pig pen?" Han Yuheng pointed to the bamboo grove area and said, "It is built not far from the river. We need to walk for about 10 minutes to get there." Knowing that it was normal for the roads in the village to be narrow, the young man nodded and got out of the truck. He walked to the trunk and said, "Comrade, let me help you move the piglet into the pig pen." Hearing this, Han Yuheng said, "Comrade, can you wait a moment? I'll go and notify the villager who is responsible for raising the piglets first." Thinking that the villager indeed needed to sign the document, he nodded and said, "Then I'll wait here." Han Yuheng strode towards Li Chenmo's house and knocked on the door. "Brother Li, are you at home?" Not long after, the door was opened and Li Chenmo appeared from behind the door. He looked at Han Yuheng and asked, "Team leader, what brings you here today?" Han Yuheng smiled at him and said with a meaningful tone, "I received the permission letter from the brigade this morning. Since you are busy with things at home, I go pick up the piglet myself." Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows when he heard this, knowing that Han Yuheng would not do any thankless work and hinting at something. "Team leader, how did you bring the piglets back by yourself?" He asked the obvious question, as if he didn't even get the hint. Hearing his question, Han Yuheng straightened his back and said with a hint of pride, "The brigade secretary was worried that it would be troublesome for me to bring the piglets back alone, so he asked someone to send me back in a truck." Li Chenmo nodded and asked, "So that's the case, then where is the truck?" The truck was parked on the road by the river. Hearing his words, Li Chenmo nodded and said, "I'll get a bamboo basket first. Team leader, please wait a moment." After saying that, Li Chenmo went to the kitchen and got a big bamboo basket. Before going out, he went to the bedroom to find his wife and said, "Wife, I'm going out for a while. The team leader sent the piglets here." After hearing what her husband said, Lu Jiu raised her head from the book and said, "Husband, do you need my help?" Li Chenmo thought for a moment and said, we may need to prepare some water, because the brigade secretary sent someone to bring the piglet over. All right, I'll go prepare some snacks and tea. After notifying his wife, Li Chenmo and Han Yuheng went to transport the piglets. The bamboo basket can hold 5 piglets, and 3 piglets can be held in the arms. Han Yuheng and the young man each held 3 piglets. At one time, they can carry 14 piglets at the same time. So in just 2 trips, they moved all the piglets into the pig pen. When they were done, the young man took out a document and a pen from his pocket. He handed it to Li Chenmo and said, "Comrade, you need to sign this document." Li Chenmo took the document, read it over, and signed it after finding no problems. He handed the document back to the young man and said, "Comrade, my wife has prepared some snacks and tea. Come and rest for a while before you go back." The young man wiped the sweat from his forehead and nodded, "Thank you, comrade, then I won't be polite." Li Chenmo led them across the bamboo bridge and entered from the backyard. When Han Yuheng and the young man saw the vigorously growing cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, and cantaloupes, their eyes widened in surprise. It's still spring, but the vegetables are ready for harvest. When Han Yuheng was still hesitant about whether to ask Li Chenmo how they did this or not, the young man had no such reservations. He looked around excitedly and asked, "Comrade, how do you grow the vegetables? It is spring now, yet your vegetables are ready to be harvested." Li Chenmo didn't mean to hide anything and said, "These vegetables were planted in late winter, and it is indeed time to harvest them. But they grow so well because we use our pig manure as fertilizer." The young man thought for a while and said, "The pig farm of the brigade also uses pig manure as fertilizer for the crops and vegetables, but the effect is not as good as yours. My wife and I only learned about this recently. Maybe it's because the pig feed we prepared is different from the usual pig feed, so the pig manure is slightly better," Li Chenmo said thoughtfully. The young man's eyes lit up and he asked, "Comrade, can you share your pig feed formula? I want to report this to the brigade secretary. If the effect of pig manure is indeed related to pig feed, then we may be able to increase production. In this way, you will make a great contribution to the country and will be rewarded." Li Chenmo nodded and said, "I told the brigade secretary before that my wife and I are looking for better pig feed to increase the pig's weight. So of course we will hand over the pig feed formula after we find the best ingredients. As for the pig's manure, it is just an extra benefit that we didn't expect." The young man listened to his words and was very happy. Since even pig manure has a good effect, their pig feed can definitely increase the weight of pigs. It looks like they may be able to solve the meat shortage this year. While talking, they came to the living room. When they entered the room, Lu Jiu had already returned to the bedroom after she placed a pot of tea on the brazier and a plate of biscuits on the table. Since the guests were all men, she did not come out and let her husband entertain the guests. After they finished the biscuits and tea, Li Chenmo opened the cabinet in the living room and took out 2 cans of biscuits. He handed it to Han Yuheng and the young man, and said at the same time, "Comrade team leader, thank you for your help today. Everyone knows that taking bribes is prohibited, but accepting small gifts such as food or drink is allowed, so they took the biscuits, thanked Li Chenmo and left. After locking the gate, Li Chenmo came to the bedroom and saw his wife writing something on a piece of paper. He looked closer and saw that it was the recipe for pellets. He kissed her earlobe and asked, even though he knew the answer, "Wife, what are you writing?" Lu Jiu was tickled by his kiss, squirmed a little and said, "Husband, stop messing around. I'm writing the pig feed formula and pellets to the brigade secretary." Li Chenmo kissed her earlobe again and asked, "Can the current technology produce the pellets?" Lu Jiu nodded and said, "It should be no problem. In fact, the ingredients are similar to ordinary pig feed. The only difference lies in the process of compressing the ingredients into pellets. Since the pellets are processed at high temperatures, they are healthier for pigs." If she remembered correctly, the pellet machine was first produced in California in 1931. In the 1960s, Huaxia introduced the first pellet machine from the British UMT company. In the process of continuous absorption and research, Huaxia finally manufactured the first pellet machine in 1970. Since she could not provide too detailed information, Lu Jiu just wrote down the ingredients and let the government find a way to make them into pellets. As for Li Lingyun's pig farm, she planned to use pellet feed instead of crushed pig feed from the beginning. After writing the materials, she handed the piece of paper to Li Chenmo and said, "Husband, this is the ingredients. It can also be used as pig feed, but the effect will be better if it is made into pellets." Li Chenmo took the paper and said, "I'll give it to the brigade secretary the day after tomorrow." Hearing this, Lu Jiu asked, "Husband, aren't you planning to hand it over to Han Yuheng?" He looked at his wife, patted her nose, and said, "Instead of benefiting him, why not benefit us? Maybe we will get some money as a reward." Thinking about Han Yuheng's character setting in the original novel, Lu Jiyu agreed with her husband's words. Although Han Yuheng looks decent and kind on the outside, he is actually a cunning, snobbish, cowardly, selfish, and greedy person. Unlike Han Yuluo, who is an honest, kind, gentle, observant, diligent, and loyal person. After coming to this world and interacting with him, Lu Jiyu almost forgot his true character. If she hadn't known about his character setting from the original novel, she might have been deceived by Han Yuheng and thought he was a good man. She glanced at her husband and wondered how he knew Han Yuheng's true character without reading the original novel. Indeed, the male protagonist is different from others. She simply cannot compare with her husband at all. Noticing that his wife was looking at him with complicated eyes, Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows and asked, "Wife, what are you thinking about?" After coming back to her senses, Lu Jiyu shook her head and said, "Husband, can you help me collect the vegetables later?" "All right." The two went to the front yard and harvested lettuce, cherry tomatoes, eggplants, and pole beans. It took them several hours to finish harvesting the vegetables. After they finished harvesting, Lu Jiyu put the vegetables in her own space and brought her husband into her space. After taking a bath, they had dinner and went to bed. After waking up, they left the space and appeared in the bedroom. While waiting for the night to darken, Lu Jiyu handed the book she had compiled to her husband and said, "Husband, do you want to read a book?" Li Chenmo took the book and smiled when he saw the familiar handwriting. He hummed softly and opened the book. The moment he read the book, he knew what his wife wanted to do. The books he read were actually the knowledge they learned in junior high school. Although it has been a long time since he graduated from junior high school, he has a good memory and still remembers what he learned. Thinking of the upcoming college entrance examination, he did not refute his wife's kindness and read seriously. Seeing her husband's focused look, Lu Jiyu smiled and concentrated on the textbook in her hand. While she was cleaning her space, she noticed several boxes stored in a cabinet. Inside the box were her junior high school, and college textbooks. She didn't expect to find these books here, but when he thought that she did keep these books in her apartment in her previous life, Lu Jiyu only felt lucky that she didn't have time to sell these textbooks after graduating from college. In this era, textbooks are one of the forbidden items. If they are caught hiding textbooks, it will cause trouble for the whole family. They will be labeled wicked people and sent to labor camps. Therefore, there are not many textbooks available on the black market. Beside the regulations, the reason also because the only university available was Worker Peasant Soldier University. Beside their social status as workers, peasants, or soldiers, one needs connections to get into college. After all, this university values a person's political views more than their academic credentials. Therefore, most people think it is better to spend time working in the field rather than reading. Time flew by while they were reading. When Li Chenmo heard the sound of the owl, he closed the book and handed it back to his wife while saying, "Wife, it's time to go to the pig pen." Lu Jiyu kept the book back to her own space, put on her hat and scarf, and left with her husband. Using flashlights, they crossed the bamboo bridge without anyone noticing and arrived at the pig pen shortly. When they arrived at the pig pen, they walked to where Li Chenmo stored his tools and hay. While he was standing guard outside, Lu Jiyu took out 14 sacks of pig pellets from her space and placed them in the corner of the pig pen. She didn't cover it with hay and just left it in the open. In this way, even if people see it, they will only think it is pigweed or hay inside the sacks. It only took her a few minutes to take out the pellets. 15 minutes later, they were back at home. After washing up, they locked the doors and went to bed again since there were still a few hours before dawn. Soon after they fell asleep, 5 people secretly walked towards the pig pen. Each of them carries a large bamboo basket on his back. When they arrived near the pig pen, they looked around to make sure there was no one around before entering the pen. As soon as they entered the pen, they were startled by the pigs, because they looked at them unmovingly. Just when the men and the pigs looked at each other, one of them saw the sacks in the corner and whispered, "Brother Hu, this must be the pig feed that the boss told us." Hu Wusun, known as Leohu, looked at the pile of sacks and nodded. As butchers, their strength is above that of ordinary people, so it's not a problem for them to carry 2 or 3 sacks on their backs at the same time. After putting the bags into the bamboo basket, they left the pig pen. After they left, the pigs went back to their corners to sleep. Early the next morning, Lu Jiyu woke up before dawn. After she gently kissed her husband's chin, she went to the kitchen to boil water. After the water boiled, she washed herself with it and went to the chicken coop. Winter is over, and there is more sunlight during the day, so she keeps the light bulb and solar panel in her space. After keeping the eggs in her space, she filled the chicken feeder and water bowl. The old hen noticed her and gave a soft clucking sound. After patting the old hen on the head, Lu Jiu went to the pig pen. While pinching her nose, Lu Jiu took out 20 sacks of pig pellets from her space and placed them in the corner of the pig pen. Then, she took out a few buckets of cooked feed for the piglets before going to water the vegetable garden. When she arrived at the backyard garden, she was surprised to see cantaloupes and watermelons already starting to bear fruit. Generally speaking, it takes at least 30 days after germination to bloom, and another 30-40 days to bear fruit. After it bears fruit, it takes another 30-40 days to mature. She calculated and found that the cantaloupes and watermelons she planted were already bearing fruit in only about 20 days. Judging from the growth process, she might be able to find ripe fruits in 10 days. It was only spring and she couldn't let anyone know about it. After thinking about it, she decided to cover the watermelons with hay. This way, no one will know about the fruits. After watering the vegetable gardens and a peach tree, Lu Jiu went to prepare breakfast. For breakfast today, she made some fried dough sticks, hot soy milk, vegetable porridge, and steamed eggs. Today, it was her husband's turn to check the crops in the production team's fields. If there is not enough water, manual watering is required. Since it was the farming slack period, the villagers were divided into 10 groups and took turns inspecting the fields. This way, each team only has to work once every 10 days. They will receive work points based on their work that day. If they don't need to water the fields or clear the pests and weeds, they will only be given 5 work points instead of 10. When the rooster crows, Li Chenmo wakes up and goes to the kitchen to look for his wife. Seeing that his wife had started working early in the morning, he walked over and hugged her from behind. He leaned on her shoulder and asked in a hoarse voice, "Wife, why did you get up so early?" Lu Jiu turned around, kissed his lips, and said, "Good morning, husband. Don't you have to go to the fields today? I got up early to prepare breakfast for you," she added. Li Chenmo took a deep breath, smelled his wife's fragrance, and sighed, "We can go to your space to have breakfast, so you don't have to get up so early." Hearing what her husband said, Lu Jiu smiled and said, "Although my space is convenient, I still have to cook every day. Otherwise, people will start to become suspicious of us." Li Chenmo glanced at his wife and said nothing. He kissed her, then went to freshen up and go to the pig pen. Because the piglets eat different feed from the older pigs, Li Chenmo put them in different pig pens and fed them cooked feed. For the 4 pigs, he poured the pellets into their feeders. As soon as the feeder was filled, Li Chen's, Li Lingyun, Lu Han, and Lu Cheng arrived together. Seeing them, Li Chenmo greeted them, eldest brother, second brother, brother-in-law. Seeing that he had finished feeding the pigs and piglets, Li Lingyun said, "Since we only need to feed the pigs and clean the pig pen, I think it is better to divide the labor. I need to get fertilizer in the morning, so I will come in the morning." Li Chen's nodded after listening to his words and said, "Then, how about my second brother and I come over in the morning, and Lu Han and Lu Cheng come over in the afternoon?" Lu Han and Lu Cheng had no objections to this arrangement and both agreed. After cleaning up the pig manure, Li Chenmo showed the location of the pit he had dug before. They were surprised when they saw bamboo and mushrooms growing thrivingly around the pit. After noting the location, they returned after transporting the pig manure. When Li Chenmo returned home, he went to the kitchen to get a pot of hot water and wash himself before going to the bedroom. Seeing his wife waiting for him, he smiled and said, "Wife, I'm back." Lu Jiu put down the book in her hand and said, "Husband, let's eat first while the food is warm." MHMM. After breakfast, Li Chenmo went to work, while Lu Jiu was preparing more snacks, brewing more wines, and reading in her own space. Since her husband had no fixed place of work during this time, she prepared lunch for him instead of sending it to him. When Li Chenmo arrived at the central area, he saw Du Jiawen also present. Unlike before when Du Jiawen always looked at him with jealousy and hatred, this time he looked at him calmly and even said hello to him, which surprised Li Chenmo. "Good morning, Comrade Li." Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows and said, "Comrade Du, good morning." After the awkward greetings, both of them fell silent, each thinking about their own things. After a while, Du Jiawen coughed lightly and said, "Comrade Li, I want to apologize to you and Jiu, your wife, for everything I did before." Although he was taken aback by his words, the calm expression on Li Chenmo's face showed nothing as he said, "It's all in the past. As long as Comrade Du knows his mistakes and moves on, I won't mind what happened before." Du Jiawen clenched his fists and smiled stiffly. "I understand. I hope you won't let her down, otherwise I will take her away. Listening to his words, Lee Chenmo knew that he was referring to Suanna and her fish soup incident. He snorted and said coldly, "Comrade, do mind your own business. Don't say I won't give you the chance to take her away. Even if my wife and I quarrel, you won't have a chance at all. After all, you are my wife and we love each other. Lovers' quarrels are a spice that can make us love each other even more." Du Jaiwan's face turned pale when he heard Lee Chenmo's words. To this day, he still holds on to hope that Lu Jiu was forced to marry Lee Chenmo and still loves him. But after seeing them arguing that day, he knew that she no longer had any feelings for him. That's why he agreed to meet the girl of his parents' choice. Knowing that Pan Majia and Lu Jiu had a good relationship, he panicked when Pan Majia saw him with that girl in the county town that day. He thought about countless scenarios about what would he do if Lu Jiu went to him and asked him about this matter. But after so many days, he knew that this was just wishful thinking on his part. She is already married, and with her personality, it is impossible for her to get close to another man, let alone ask about his personal affairs. Seeing his reaction, Lee Chenmo's eyes darkened, and there was an obvious warning in his tone. "Du Jaiwan, don't push your luck and don't test my patience. The next time you interfere in my family's affairs, things will not end so easily like today. Now that your parents have chosen a girl for you, you should get married and go back to where you came from. Stop wasting time on your wishful thinking." Hearing his words, Du Jaiwan's eyes widened and he asked in disbelief, "You, how do you know?" Lee Chenmo did not answer him, but turned around and left. How did he know? Of course, from his second brother Lee Lingyun. His second brother saw him with a girl in the county town that day, and he told him the next time they met. He thought Du Jaiwan would stop disturbing his wife after the blind date. Unexpectedly, after knowing that his wife was married and that Du Jaiwan himself had gone on a blind date, he still dared to warn him. This was an eye-opener for him. Not long after, villagers arrived one after another. After everyone arrived, Han Yuheng divided their work and went to their respective work areas. Since they didn't need to water the crops or clear away pests and weeds, they were back before noon. When Lee Chenmo came back, he saw his wife cleaning wild ginseng in the backyard. He knew that a large amount of ginseng was grown in his wife's space, so he was not surprised when he saw so many wild ginseng. Hearing his footsteps, Lu Jiu raised her head and said, "Husband, you are back." Lee Chenmo leaned over and kissed her on the forehead and said, "I'm going to take a shower first." "All right." After cleaning the wild ginseng, Lu Jiu kept it in her own space as she planned to use it to brew more tonic wine in the future. After Lee Chenmo finished taking a shower, she took him to her own space, and the two had lunch there. Since there was nothing to do, they spent time reading in her space. The next day, Lu Jiu and Lee Chenmo woke up to the sound of roosters crowing. Today, her husband was going to visit the brigade secretary. Lu Jiu prepared some gifts for her husband to give to the brigade secretary. After all, it was with his help that they were able to get permission to raise so many pigs. When Lee Chenmo went to the pig pen, Lu Jiu had already prepared breakfast and was waiting for him. While she waited, she packed a pound of fruit slices, 10 empanadas and 2 jars of meat sauce. This gift is neither too much nor too little. Since the gift is food, it will not cause trouble to the brigade secretary or themselves. In the pig pen, Lee Chenmo saw his cousin coming with Lee Chen's and looked at his eldest brother with questioning eyes. Seeing his gaze, Lee Chen's said, "When our father visited our uncles yesterday, they said they want some of your pig manure. Since our father agreed, our cousins came to collect the pig manure today." Lee Chenmo looked at the buckets they brought, pointed to the wooden bucket in the corner, and said nonchalantly, "Go get it yourself." Hearing his words, the cousins breathed a sigh of relief. Among the Lee brothers, he was the most scary. But after Lee Lingyun returned home, there was another terrifying cousin besides Lee Chenmo. Not because they were grumpy, but because both of them have a very strong, intimidating aura. Despite their politeness, their cold demeanor frightened the cousins and kept them from approaching. They knew that Lee Chenmo was a soldier, and it was normal for him to have a strong aura. However, they didn't know why Lee Lingyun, as an honest farmer, had a similar aura to Lee Chenmo. They were even curious about how Lee Chenmo managed to marry a beautiful and caring wife. What they don't know is that as a butcher, Lee Lingyun's mentality and strength are far beyond ordinary people. Without a strong mentality, he may have many psychological problems if he slaughtered pigs every day for so many years. For a person who can slaughter pigs with ease, it is understandable that he has a strong aura similar to that of a soldier on the battlefield. After getting permission, the cousins went to get the pig manure. When they saw that the pig pen was so clean, they thought it was because the Lee brothers were diligent. But this idea was shaken when they saw the pigs going to defecate in the bucket neatly. When they saw this, they looked at Li Chenmo with questioning gazes, but saw that he was busy shoveling pig manure as if it were normal. The cousins felt that they might have thought too much, so they put the matter behind them. After they got the fertilizer, they thanked them and left in a good mood. When there were only 2 of them left, Li Chenmo looked at Li Chen's and asked, "Brother, where is the second brother?" Li Chen's looked back at Li Chenmo and asked, "He didn't come today." The 2 looked at each other and shrugged. Since there isn't much work, it's no problem for Li Lingyun to skip work for a day or 2. At the same time, Li Lingyun was helping Pan Magia collect mushrooms and firewood at the foot of the mountain. Pan Magia has wanted to take him to her secret place for a long time, so after confirming the relationship, she didn't hold anything back and took him to the place she found before. After walking for an hour, they finally reached the slope. Li Lingyun saw the steep slope, took Pan Magia's hand and said, "Be careful, watch where you step." Pan Magia was very happy with his caring attitude and said sweetly, "Okay." When they reached the bottom of the slope, Li Lingyun was surprised to find so many mushrooms growing here. In addition to mushrooms, there are several wild berry bushes and a few wild fruit trees. After arriving here, he finally found out where his girlfriend's money came from. Seeing his surprise, Pan Magia said smugly, "How is it, Brother Yun? I didn't lie to your right. I discovered this place before when I fell down the hill." She pointed to the place next to the old tree and added, "That place is where I found the Ganoderma lucidum." Hearing her words, Li Lingyun frowned at her and asked, "Why didn't you tell me about your fall before? Did you go to the hospital?" Seeing his worried expression, Pan Magia put down her hand and said, "We were just friends at that time, so I don't think it's necessary to tell you this. I used ointment and didn't go to the hospital." Li Lingyun closed his eyes, took a deep breath to control the fear in his heart, and said, "Jia, from now on, you must tell me whenever you want to come to the mountain or the foothills." Before Pan Magia could say anything, he added, "If you don't tell me and come secretly by yourself, I won't buy your favorite dumpling soup for you." Seeing his firm attitude, Pan Magia pouted and said, "Okay, I'll tell you next time." Li Lingyun breathed a sigh of relief when he heard her promise. He held her hand and said softly, "Jia, I didn't mean to control you. I was just worried about your safety. Do you know how scared I was when I heard what you just said? What should I do if something happens to you?" Although Pan Magia felt that it was nothing as she was not injured and even found this place, she noticed that her boyfriend's hands were shaking. Looking at his deep frown, she didn't want him to feel sad or worry because of her. Therefore, she decided to take good care of herself and be more careful in the future so as not to worry her boyfriend. After thinking about it, she nodded and said, "Brother Yun, I'm sorry for making you worry. I promise I will be more careful next time." Hearing what she said, Li Lingyun rubbed her head and nodded, "MHMM." After a brief conversation, they started collecting mushrooms. There is a small cave near the slope where they put the collected mushrooms to dry. Fresh mushrooms are much heavier than dried ones. Since they planned to sell the dried mushrooms to Huzi, they agreed to dry them in the cave first, and then take them directly to the black market when they had accumulated enough. While picking mushrooms, Pan Magia walked into the woods near the old tree and saw a huge wild beehive. Although she was ecstatic, she was afraid to take a wild beehive without preparation. So she ran back to find her boyfriend while shouting, "Brother Yun." Hearing his girlfriend's voice, Li Lingyun looked up and saw her running quickly. He was afraid that she would trip and get hurt, so he strode towards her and said worriedly, "Slow down." Remembering her promise, she stopped running and walked quickly. Pan Magia's heart was beating wildly with excitement. After taking a few deep breaths, she pointed at the trees and said, "Brother Yun, I found a wild beehive. We are so lucky today." Hearing her words, a trace of surprise and excitement flashed in his eyes, and he said, "We need to make some preparations before we can collect it. I will pick it up after we return to the village." At first, Pan Magia was worried that someone would discover this place, but thinking that it was so hidden, she felt relieved. She nodded to him and said, "Okay, let's pick mushrooms quickly." Li Lingyun smiled when he saw her eager look. Thinking of her carelessness just now, he flicked her forehead lightly and said, "Don't run so fast next time. Otherwise, you will fall and get hurt." Pan Magia covered her forehead and said with a pout, "Okay." Seeing her aggrieved look, Li Lingyun sighed. His girlfriend is still young, so he should be more understanding. Stretching out his hand, he rubbed her forehead and said helplessly, "If you are injured, I will be worried and sad. So please do me a favor and be more careful, okay?" After hearing what he said, Pan Magia blushed and said, "Okay." 2 hours later, the mature mushrooms were collected. They let the young mushroom grow more and then collect it next time. As they walked back to the village, their bamboo baskets were filled with firewood. After sending Pan Majia back to the Lu family's house, Li Lingyun went to his house to get a hat, gloves, a big jar, and a fire stick. He then returned to the hillside to retrieve the wild beehives. He lit a fire and used the smoke to drive away the bees. He made sure to properly cover his face, hands, feet, and body as the bees left, then used a dagger to cut the hive from the tree. As Li Lingyun cuts, the honey drips into the jar. He put the beehive into the jar with a smile on his face. He didn't expect the beehive to be so big that the jars were filled to the brim. When he was done, he covered the jar with a cloth and tied it with twine. He took it home in a bamboo basket. To prevent others from being jealous, he collected some pigweed and covered the jar with it. Since everyone knew that he and his brothers raised pigs together, no one asked anything when they saw him gather the pigweed. While Li Lingyun was busy processing the wild honey, Li Chenmo was sitting in the brigade secretary's office. He took a sip of tea and found that the tea tasted far worse than his wife's tea. Not long after, the brigade secretary walked into the room, followed by the young man who had delivered the piglet before. Seeing the brigade secretary, Li Chenmo stood up, stretched out his hand and said, "Brigade secretary." The brigade secretary shook hands with him and said, "Comrade Li, please have a seat." After they were seated, the brigade secretary asked, "Comrade Li, I wonder what brings you here today." Seeing the eager eyes of the brigade secretary, Li Chenmo smiled. He knew that the young comrade had already told the leader about his wife's vegetable garden and the pig manure. He took out a piece of paper, put it on the table and said, "Brigade secretary, this is the new pig feed formula that my wife and I use. I believe you are already aware of the quality of my pig manure." The brigade secretary took the paper, read it carefully, nodded, and said with a smile, "Zhiro Jiang has already told me about your vegetable garden. It is hard to believe that the quality of pig manure can be improved by changing the pig feed. I will let our comrades test this formula. If your pig feeds can increase the weight of the pigs and improve the quality of the fertilizer, then you and your wife have really done a great service to our country." Li Chenmo smiled at his words and said modestly, "Actually, we didn't expect this either. As long as it can benefit the people, my wife and I are already content." After speaking, Li Chenmo picked up the bamboo basket at his feet and put it on the table. He gently pushed it to the brigade secretary and said, "This is a snack made by my wife. Brigade secretary, please give it a try." Seeing the bamboo basket, the brigade secretary frowned. He is one of the officials who hates bribery the most. Every day there was no shortage of people coming to fawn over him. So after hearing Li Chenmo's words, his good impression of him disappeared instantly. But when he opened the bamboo basket and saw that there were only snacks and nothing more, he felt embarrassed for his own suspicions. He shouldn't be too quick to judge others without finding out the truth. Opening the jar, the aroma of meat sauce instantly filled the room. His eyes lit up and he opened the oil paper, only to see fruit slices and empanadas. Smelling the fragrance, both the brigade secretary and Zhiro Jiang felt their stomachs growling. Seeing that it was almost noon, Li Chenmo stood up and said, "Brigade secretary, Comrade Jiang, my wife is still waiting for me at home. I'll take my leave now." After hearing his words, the brigade secretary and Comrade Jiang both nodded and stood up. The brigade secretary smiled and said, "Thank your wife for me." Li Chenmo nodded to him, left the office, and rode his bicycle back to Zai village. He returned home before noon and had lunch with his wife. After fulfilling their promise to the brigade secretary, both of them breathed a sigh of relief and spent the day peacefully. Just as they spent the day peacefully, the political situation in the capital fell into chaos due to the struggle between the leaders. Due to political struggles, lower-level institutions lacked capable personnel to perform basic functions, causing Huaxia's economy to fall into chaos. Amid the political turmoil, villagers continued to live their lives as usual. Unknowingly, a few days passed in the blink of an eye. In the middle of the night, Huzi carried a bag, covered his face with a scarf, and sneaked into the pig pen. After entering the pig pen, old Su was woken up by him and asked him in a low voice, "Zairogen, why are you here today?" Huzi put the bundle on the ground and said in a low voice, "Grandpa, how are you?" Old Su patted Huzi's hand and said, "Zairogen, Grandpa is fine. You shouldn't come to this place. If you are caught, you will be in trouble." Huzi looked at his paternal grandpa sadly and said, "Grandpa, I know what to do. This time I am here to deliver medicine to you." After speaking, he opened the bundle, took out a bottle of cough medicine and said, "Grandpa, you drink it once a day. I'll come again when it's almost finished." Old Su took the medicine and hid it under a pile of hay. After confirming that his grandpa was fine, Huzi took out a jar of tonic wine and handed it to his grandpa while saying, "Grandpa, this is tonic wine for Grandpa Gu. His granddaughter asked me to send it over." Old Su took the jar and hid it. Before leaving, Huzi held his grandpa's hands and whispered, "Grandpa, I got some news that the capital is in great turmoil at the moment, and the situation is still unclear. The leaders are trying to bring down the opposition party, so you must stay strong and don't give up. I'll find a way to get you out of this place." Hearing his words, a glimmer of hope reigned in old Su's eyes. Seeing that it was getting late, Huzi hurriedly left the pig pen. No one noticed that he came to the pig pen besides Li Lingyun, who hid behind the tree. He looked at Huzi's back thoughtfully and muttered, "What is he doing in this place?" Although he was very curious, Li Lingyun had no intention of pursuing the reason. Anyway, Huzi is his girlfriend's cousin and should be considered family. He looked at the moon and walked towards the mountain. Tonight, he is going to visit his pig farm. He has been using Lu Jiu's pig feed for a week, and the results surprised him. In just 1 week, his piglets and pigs weigh as much as a month's worth of feeding. His pig farm is built in a mountain forest, making it difficult for people who don't know the road to find it. After climbing for an hour, he finally reached the pig farm. When he walked into the pig farm, the sound of pigs grunting could be heard echoing in the pig farm. He walked to the pig pen and checked the condition of the pigs. He nodded with satisfaction as he watched them gain weight 3 times faster than before. After checking the piglets and pigs, Li Lingyun walked to the back area. This area is specially built for slaughtering pigs. Unlike other pig farms, every time they slaughter a pig, they make sure the pig is unconscious during the bleeding process. Therefore, when they killed the pigs, there was no sound from the pigs at all. When Hu Wusun saw him coming, he walked over and said, "Boss, you came at the right time. We are still bleeding the pigs. Do you want to bring some pig blood back?" Thinking of his girlfriend's pale face when he saw her yesterday, Li Lingyun nodded and said, "Give me half of it." Hearing his words, Hu Wusun was surprised and said, "Boss, you can't eat too much blood pudding." Today, they slaughtered 2 pigs, each weighing more than 200 kilograms, because of the new pig feed. Each pig can produce about 12 liters of pig blood, so half the blood is indeed too much for one person. Li Lingyun glanced at him and said, "I know, give me half. I want to share it with my family." After hearing what he said, Hu Wusun remembered that the boss had already found his family and agreed readily, "Okay." 2 hours later, Li Lingyun left the pig farm and brought some pig blood and meat back for his girlfriend and family. After returning home, he cut the pig blood into small pieces, added water and salt, and cooked it over medium heat until it changed color. Afterward, he strained the pig's blood and let it cool. In the meantime, he went to wash up and take a nap. When the rooster crows, Lu Jiu wakes up and sits on the bed in a daze. She yawned, stretched, then leaned over and kissed her husband. After getting off the kang bed, she braided her hair and walked to the backyard. After washing up and boiling water, she went to the chicken coop to get fresh eggs. She filled the chicken feeder and water bowl and then went to water the vegetable garden. She counted the days while watering the vegetables and the peach tree. Today is March 7th, but some peaches are ready for harvest. She looked at the lush growth of Boston lettuce, eggplant, lentils, peppers, and peach trees thoughtfully. Even though some people have changed their minds about her after her marriage with Li Chenmo, most villagers are still unwilling to associate with her, whether out of jealousy or previous rumors. Therefore, few people come to visit her home. Because of this, Lu Jiu doesn't have to worry about others knowing something is wrong with her vegetable garden. Not long after she finished watering the vegetable garden and peach tree, Li Chenmo woke up. Since he didn't need to go to work at the field today, he got up later than usual. After washing his face, he went to find his wife. He walked to Lu Jiu, hugged her from behind, leaned over, and gave her a morning kiss. "Good morning, wife." Lu Jiu smiled at him and said, "Good morning, husband." He looked at the sky and said, "I'm going to the pig pen first. My eldest brother and second brother should have arrived. Husband, since my sister-in-law has already prepared the ground pig feed, I think we don't need to prepare it anymore. I will go to the pig pen later and take out more pellets. We can store it in that extra room, so it will be easier when you are feeding the pigs." Li Chenmo thought for a while and nodded, "Okay." After the brief conversation, Li Chenmo went to the pig pen to feed the pigs and clean the pens. There are 30 pigs in total, and a lot of pig manure is produced every day. In just 1 week, the pit he dug was almost full. Seeing that the wooden basins in the corner of the fence were full, he looked at Li Chen's and Li Lingyun and said, "Brothers, after you have got the pig manure, the rest will be handed over to the production team. The pit on the mountain is almost full." Li Chen's looked at the amount of pig manure and nodded. I'll ask our uncles first if they want more. After using your pig manure as fertilizer, their vegetables grew thrivingly. It seems that using these feeds to feed the pigs was a good decision. Li Chenmo did not object and readily agreed. After cleaning the pig pen, Li Lingyun said, Big brother, third brother, I bought some pig blood and meat yesterday. I will send them over later. Li Chenmo knew how rich his second brother was and where the pig blood and meat came from, but Li Chen's didn't know. So when he heard that he had bought meat and pig blood, he couldn't help but remind him, Second brother, since you are planning to get married, you should save some money and not spend money randomly. The meat you sent over before has not been finished yet. Li Lingyun looked at his brother and said, Brother, I have money. It's spring now and meat will spoil if left for too long. My nephew is growing up and needs to eat more meat. So, don't skimp on food. If it's not enough, I'll buy some more. Li Chen's gets a headache every time he talks about money with his brothers. Li Lingyun and Li Chenmo were both difficult to persuade and spent money lavishly, which made him very worried. Seeing his second brother's insistence, Li Chen's could only sigh and said, Okay, but don't buy too often. Li Lingyun knew that his brother was worried about him, so he nodded, I know. Seeing his elder brother worried about them, Li Chenmo felt helpless. At first he wanted to help his elder brother sell things on the black market, but due to the pig raising plan, it was postponed until today. His elder brother doesn't have much money, so it's normal for him to feel distressed if they spent money to buy meat too often. If he was able to earn more money, he would change his mind. After coming to this conclusion, he said, Elder brother, when do you plan to sell things to that place? After hearing this, Li Chen's remembered their original plan and said, I plan to ask your sister-in-law to make some snacks to sell. Li Chenmo thought for a while and said, My wife also wants to make some snacks. How about you ask my sister-in-law to come over and cook with my wife? I will prepare the ingredients, so my sister-in-law doesn't need to bring anything. Li Chen's was stunned, frowned and said, How can this be possible? If you prepare the ingredients, aren't we taking advantage of you and your wife? Li Chenmo knew that even if they were brothers, they had to calculate their money clearly. So he said, Brother, there are a lot of orders now, but my wife can't handle it alone, so I want to ask my sister-in-law to help her. In this way, we can complete the orders and retain the customers. As for the profit, we will share it equally after deducting the cost of raw materials. Li Lingyun's eyes lit up when he heard his words. Pan Magia likes the food cooked by Lu Jiu the most. She would be delighted if he told her this idea. So before Li Chen's could speak, he interrupted them. Third brother, I'll tell my wife. She will definitely agree to help your wife. Li Chenmo rolled his eyes at his second brother's shameless words and said, Second brother, you have to be careful with what you say. Pan Magia hasn't married you yet. Calling her your wife will ruin her reputation. Li Lingyun waved his hand and said confidently, Sooner or later she will become your second sister-in-law. Just practice calling her sister-in-law from now on. Feeling too lazy to pay attention to his shameless second brother, Li Chenmo snorted and said, If they agree, just come over after lunch. After more than 10 days of getting along, Li Chen's has become accustomed to their showing off banter to each other. As the eldest son, he can only listen to them boasting to each other and act as a mediator when the competition becomes too fierce. After reaching an agreement, Li Chenmo went back to his home to have breakfast with his wife, while Li Lingyun returned to his house to get pig blood and meat. As for Li Chen's, he went back and told his wife Li Chenmo's suggestion, and then went to ask his uncles about the pig manure. When Li Chenmo came back from the pig pen, Lu Jiu was preparing breakfast in the kitchen. Smelling the aroma of scallion pancakes, he walked towards the kitchen with a smile. Hearing the familiar footsteps, Lu Jiu turned her head and said, Husband, I boiled a pot of water for you. You go and wash up first, then we can have breakfast together. Li Chenmo nodded, took the hot water and went to take a bath. When she was making the scallion pancakes, the chicken porridge was ready. She took the chicken porridge from the brazier, filled the kettle with soy milk and put it on the brazier. In addition to scallion pancakes, chicken porridge and soy milk, she also steamed some meat buns. When she finished cooking, her husband had finished taking a bath. As the weather got warmer, they did not eat on the kang bed, but in the living room instead. Their home is a courtyard house, so the living room is spacious and well ventilated. While eating, Li Chenmo said, Wife, I have already discussed our plan to sell snacks on the black market with my brothers. After lunch, my sister-in-law may bring Pan Magia over to make snacks with you. Lu Jiu nodded and asked, Husband, have you told your brother that we want to use our ingredients? Huzi said that his customers only want to buy our snacks. I think in addition to the snacks tasting better, maybe they also noticed the health benefits, so they dared to pay a higher price. Li Chenmo agreed with his wife and said, I have already told my brothers about this. You can discuss with my sister-in-law and Pan Magia on how to distribute the income later. All right. Remembering that the cantaloupes and watermelons were ready to be harvested, Lu Jiu said, Husband, after breakfast, can you help me harvest the cantaloupes and watermelons? Li Chenmo agreed readily. After breakfast, Li Chenmo cleared the table and went to wash the dishes, while Lu Jiu went to the woodshed to get the bamboo baskets and harvesting knives. For cantaloupe, they just need to hold the stem and twist it slightly, as the cantaloupe has reached the full slip stage and will easily fall off the stem. As for the watermelon, they need to cut it from the vine, leaving a few inches of stem attached to the fruit, so they wouldn't damage the vine and can get more fruits from the same plant. When Lu Jiu came out of the woodshed, Li Chenmo had already finished washing the dishes and was waiting for her. After she placed the bamboo baskets on the ground, her husband helped her remove the hay covering the watermelon. Seeing the plot was filled with big watermelons, Lu Jiu was delighted. She used a harvesting knife to cut a watermelon from the stem and tried to lift it. As soon as she picked up the watermelon on the ground, the watermelon was taken away from her hands. She raised her head and found her husband looking at her with a frown. Li Chenmo held the watermelon in one hand and looked at his wife with a frown. He checked her hands and said, Wife, these watermelons weigh about 20 kilograms. How could you be so careless and try to carry it? What if you injure your wrists or arms? Lu Jiu was also shocked by the weight of the watermelon, so when she heard her husband's words, she didn't refute and said, I just tried to check its weight. After confirming that his wife was not injured, he said, I'll cut the watermelon off the vine and you can just put it in your space. Don't pick it up. All right. After reaching an agreement, they got busy. Nearly 2 hours later, they finally finished harvesting the watermelons. When they harvested the watermelons, Lu Jiu found that the watermelons had produced new fruits. It seems that she can harvest more in the next few days. After the watermelon fields were cleared, Li Chenmo carried a bamboo basket to pick cantaloupes after Lu Jiu taught him how to pick it. Since Lu Jiu used bamboo sticks to let the cantaloupe vines crawl, she did not cover them with hay. Seeing how many ripe cantaloupes there were, she also helped harvest them. Each cantaloupe weighs about 4 or 5 kilograms, which can be said to be quite big. After another 2 hours, they finally finished harvesting the cantaloupe. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, Lu Jiu raised her head and looked at the sun. Since lunch was still 3 hours away, they decided to harvest the ripe peaches and vegetables. Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu had been busy since the morning and did not notice that it was past noon. Not long after collecting the vegetables, they heard a knock on the door. Seeing her husband's sweaty clothes, she said, Husband, I'll open the door. Opening the gate, Lu Jiu saw Zhang Dongmei and Pan Magia standing outside with bamboo baskets. They were all surprised when they saw her sweating profusely. This was the first time they had seen her look so unkempt. Seeing that it was them, she opened the door wider and said, Sister-in-law Magia, you are here. Please come in. After entering the house, Pan Magia saw Li Chenmo was cleaning the vegetable garden and said, Jiu, have we disturbed you and your husband? Lu Jiu smiled after hearing her words and said, We just finished tidying up the vegetable garden. Pan Magia looked at Li Chenmo's expressionless look, nodded to him and said, Brother-in-law, I'm sorry for coming suddenly. Li Chenmo nodded to them and said, My second brother has notified me this morning. Just treat my house as your own. There is no need to be so polite between family members. Hearing his words, Zhang Dongmei and Lu Jiu both looked at Pan Magia with teasing smiles. Pan Magia was a little embarrassed by his words, and her smile was stiff. Since the guests were all women, Li Chenmo went to the backyard to wash up and let his wife entertain his sister-in-law and Pan Magia. Lu Jiu took them to the living room, poured them a cup of tea and said, Sister-in-law Magia, have some tea. I'm going to wash up first. Thinking of the meat and pig blood her boyfriend asked her to bring, Pan Magia said, Jiu, Brother Yun asked me to bring this to you and your husband. Lu Jiu took the bamboo basket and said, Help me thank my second brother for the gift. Zhang Dongmei also handed over her bamboo basket and said, Third sister-in-law, I heard from your husband that you like to eat pickled fruits. I made some for you, see if it suits your taste. Taking the bamboo basket, Lu Jiu said, Thank you, sister-in-law. After leaving the living room, Lu Jiu went to the kitchen and took out pig blood, dried mushrooms and pickled fruits from the bamboo basket. She smiled, kept it in her own space, and took out the ingredients to make snacks later. In addition, she refills her flour and spice jars just in case. When she was done, Li Chenmo came over to the kitchen. She brought both of them to her space to take a shower, have lunch, and nap for a while. After napping for several hours, both of them woke up feeling refreshed. Due to the time difference, it was only 7 minutes since she left the living room. Knowing that his wife would be busy, Li Chenmo said, "Wife, I'm going to visit the team leader first. The pit I dug in the mountains is almost full, and I plan to let the production team use it as fertilizer." Lu Jiu thought for a moment and said, "Husband, I heard from my brother that the fertilizer matter has been fixed. Every year, the production team uses fertilizer made from villagers' waste. If you let the production team use our pig manure, will it cause trouble? After all, it would hinder the villagers from earning extra work points." Li Chenmo frowned when he heard his wife's words. Although human waste can be used as fertilizer, if not handled properly, crops can be contaminated by bacteria and even develop certain diseases. Thinking of the big pit where the fertilizers were processed, a flash of understanding flashed in his mind. It turned out that the poor health of the villagers was caused not only by brackish water, but also by the side effects of the fertilizers. Although he wanted Han Yuheng to stop using human excrement as fertilizer, Li Chenmo also understood that in this era, using that kind of fertilizer was normal in the village. It would be difficult to change his mind. What's more, this matter also involves extra work points for most villagers. Therefore, the possibility of this matter being approved is almost zero. After weighing the pros and cons, Li Chenmo sighed and said, "In this case, I will go to the brigade secretary. If the pig manure is not transporting out, I need to dig more pits, which may pollute the water source." Lu Jiu knew that this matter was important, so she nodded at his words. Since her husband was going out, she took out a small pouch from the space and handed it to her husband. "Husband, bring some money and coupons for emergencies." Li Chenmo knew that his wife was worried that he would be embarrassed if he went out to socialize without money, so he took it and said with a smile, "I'll be back in an hour or two. Be careful on the road." After Li Chenmo left on his bicycle, Lu Jiu locked the door and went to the living room. Pan Magia saw her coming and asked, "Jiu, what snacks are we going to make today?" Lu Jiu sat down opposite her and asked, "Magia, have you informed your cousin about my requirement?" Pan Magia nodded and said, "My cousin agrees to your conditions. Beiji will be responsible for picking up the items every day. He will come at midnight. When he comes again the next day, the money will be given to you." As if she remembered something, she took out a purse from her clothes, handed it to Lu Jiu and said, "This is the money for your tonic wine. My cousin has already deducted his share." Lu Jiu took the pouch and checked the money. Judging from the thickness of the money, it must be more than 1,000 yuan. She used her clothes as cover and put her purse into her space. Zhang Dongmei listened to them and was surprised by their arrangement. This was the first time she had done something against the government regulations, and she was still a little scared, but after listening to their conversation, she felt much more at ease. "Third sister-in-law, the snacks will be taken at midnight. Should we make it later? The weather is getting hotter and the food will spoil faster," Zhang Dongmei asked. Hearing her words, Pan Magia nodded, agreeing with her. Lu Jiu thought for a while and said, "Since that's the case, how about we prepare dried snacks instead?" Pan Magia and Zhang Dongmei were both confused by her words. Zhang Dongmei can only make some steamed cakes, while Pan Magia is an amateur and knows basically nothing about cooking. The main purpose of her coming today was to serve as a food taster and to learn cooking skills from Lu Jiu. Seeing their confused looks, Lu Jiu smiled and said, "We can make some biscuits, beef jerky, meat sauce, or fruit jam. These foods have a longer shelf life and are still delicious even if they are cold. As for steamed cakes or other food, we will make it around 9 p.m. Their eyes lit up when they heard her words. This way, they can prepare more food to sell instead of wasting time idling away. After reaching the agreement, they went to the kitchen and started preparing the dough for the cookies. Under Lu Jiu's step-by-step instruction, both Zhang Dongmei and Pan Magia learned quickly. They think biscuits are hard to make because biscuits taste so good. Turns out it's very simple and easy. The main thing is the brick oven. In addition to making biscuits, they also make beef jerky, grilled fish, meat sauce, and fruit jam. After Zhang Dongmei saw the raw materials, she was worried that they would not be able to sell them and would lose money instead. But when Lu Jiu assured her that the food was pre-ordered, she finally felt at ease. While they were busy cooking, Li Chenmo came to the brigade office. When he locked his bicycle, Comrade Jiang saw him and strode over. When he was a few steps away from him, he said in surprise, "Comrade Lei, it's indeed you." Hearing his voice, Li Chenmo turned around and said, "Comrade Jiang, how are you?" "What brought you here today?" Comrade Jiang asked with a smile. "I came to ask the brigade if they need pig manure as fertilizer. The pit I dug to store pig manure is almost full. If the pig manure cannot be transporting out, I will have to dig a new pit," Li Chenmo explained. After hearing what he said, Comrade Jiang's eyes lit up and he said, "We want it. Please come with me to fill out a form so I can go get the pig manure." Seeing his excitement, Li Chenmo nodded and followed him. Comrade Jiang was ecstatic since he managed to get a good amount of fertilizer, while Li Chenmo was relieved that he managed to find a way to throw away the pig manure. This is a win-win solution. Comrade Jiang can imagine that with Li Chenmo's pig manure, the production of vegetables and fruits can be increased. He also doesn't need to go to the production teams and ask them to share the fertilizer. Every time he visits the leaders of the production team, he must bring them a gift. What's more, he prepared this gift himself and spent a lot of money on it. In addition, when he went to visit, some production team leaders were also very arrogant. Thinking of this, Comrade Jiang felt that Li Chenmo was very pleasing to his eyes. Comrade Jiang led Li Chenmo to his desk and said, "Comrade Li, please have a seat." After saying that, he poured him a glass of water, then he sat down and took out a piece of paper from the drawer. Comrade Jiang quickly filled out half of the form, then handed it to Li Chenmo and said, "Comrade Li, please fill in the information on this form." Li Chenmo nodded and filled out the form. While he was filling out the form, Comrade Jiang said, "Comrade Li, under normal circumstances, the brigade will receive some fertilizer from the production teams every year. In exchange for the fertilizer, the quantity of food and meat they need to send to the capital will be reduced by 5% to 15% based on the fertilizer they transport." Hearing his words, Li Chenmo nodded. Although the extra 15% of meat is not a large amount, it is a huge amount of food during the summer harvest. Seeing how calm Li Chenmo was, Comrade Jiang added, "Comrade Li, normally, tax cuts are a reward for the production team, but the pig manure belongs to you. If you are willing, we can give you a personal tax cut instead." This time, after hearing Comrade Jiang's words, Li Chenmo stopped writing and raised his head. At first, he wanted to ask them to reduce his family's house taxes, but after thinking about it, he changed his mind and said, "No need, just give a tax cut for the production team. Last year's harvest was not good, and many elderly people and children did not have enough food." Comrade Jiang was stunned for a moment before he understood what he meant. He looked at him with admiration in his eyes. Few people can refuse such benefits and choose to share them with others. No wonder the brigade secretary said he is a rare person with a generous and kind heart. Comrade Jiang thinks he is being generous, but Li Chenmo is avoiding trouble. In this day and age, owning a home is prohibited. However, due to Han Yuheng's greed, he took advantage of his position as the team leader to let the villagers privately own the house. In return, they pay taxes every year. While the villagers thought this was a government regulation, in fact, it was all Han Yuheng's personal decision. The so-called tax was never given to the government, but he took it himself. If the higher-ups find out about this, Han Yuheng may face the death penalty, because accepting bribes is a serious crime. But if he is punished, so will everyone involved, including the Li family. According to his recollection, a severe drought occurred in 1978. To solve this problem, some villagers proposed an arrangement in which each household is responsible for its own production. Farm tools and land were distributed equally to households in exchange for fixed output quotas. Each member has free will to decide which crops to grow and has the right to sell excess production on the free market. They also need to cope alone with any losses they suffer. This is the prototype of the household responsibility system. This arrangement is completely contrary to the values of the Communist Party, and the villagers may be prosecuted due to this. Because of this, the arrangement has been kept secret and unknown to senior officials. It was not until 1980 that Comrade Deng Xiaoping publicly announced his approval of this policy, and rural reform officially began. This will happen in 4 years. Before that, he could not remove Han Yuheng from his post. Since they have already paid a lot of hush money, he would just use him as a shield for the time being. When other villages were engaged in rural reform, he would find ways to incite Han Yuheng to participate. After that, what happened to Han Yuheng had nothing to do with him or his family. After making the decision, Li Chenmo quickly filled out the form and returned it to Comrade Jiang. After checking the information, Comrade Jiang said, "Comrade Li, I will inform the brigade secretary and we can go get the pig manure. Please wait a moment." "All right." Comrade Jiang left the room in a happy mood and came back soon. Since Li Chenmo rode his bicycle to the brigade office, Comrade Jiang put the bicycle in the trunk, and they drove back in the truck. In addition to Comrade Jiang, there were also several people following him. As before, the truck was parked by the river. After getting out of the truck, Li Chenmo said, "I'll inform my wife first. Please wait for a moment." When they unloaded the buckets to store the pig manure and the wooden cart from the trunk, Li Chenmo returned home. As soon as he opened the door, he smelled the aroma of biscuits and meat jars. He parked his bicycle and went to the kitchen to find his wife. Seeing his wife filling the jar with meat sauce, he walked over with a smile. Hearing the familiar footsteps, Lu Jiu raised her head, saw her husband, and smiled. "Husband, you are back." Li Chenmo leaned over and kissed her forehead out of habit, forgetting that there were other people in the kitchen at the moment, and said, "MHMM, Comrade Jiang and the others are waiting for me. The brigade secretary sent them to get pig manure." Lu Jiu was a little embarrassed, so she nodded and said nothing more. After rubbing his wife's head a few times, he left with a smile. Not long after he left, Lu Jiu saw Pan Magia peeking from the kitchen door and grinning at her. After being glared at by her, Pan Magia, instead of feeling sorry, burst out laughing and continued working as if nothing had happened. At the same time, Li Chenmo was leading Comrade Jiang and others towards the foot of the mountain. They were all shocked when they saw the size of the pit. They thought the pit was small, but unexpectedly, the pit was larger than they imagined and was almost full. Since there was still a lot of pig manure to transport, they stopped wasting time and got to work. As a veteran soldier, Li Chenmo has become accustomed to the stench and filth due to his many years of battlefield experience. So he helped them shovel the pig manure from the pit into the bucket. Those with weaker stomachs were responsible for carrying the barrels to the trucks. It took Li Chenmo and the rest nearly 5 hours to remove all the pig manure from the pit. Seeing the fully loaded truck back, Comrade Jiang wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Comrade Li, thank you. With these, you have reduced a lot of our work." Li Chenmo wiped his forehead and said, "Comrade Jiang, you can come here once every 10 days and transport the pig manure. My family and I can't use so much fertilizer, so feel free to take it as much as you like." After hearing this, Comrade Jiang was overjoyed and said, "In that case, I won't be polite to you. I will take my comrades to get pig manure in 10 days. Hearing his words, Li Chenmo chuckled and said, "I should be thanking you for solving my problem. If you come to get the pig manure, I don't have to dig pits anymore." When Li Chenmo raised his head, he saw that the sun had started to set and said, "Comrades, why don't you go to my house for dinner first before going back?" "Comrade Li, thank you for the invitation, but it's getting late now, so we will take our leave first. We need to report to the brigade secretary," one of them said with a smile. "All right then." Since they brought their own water bottles, Li Chenmo did not invite them to tea. After they left, he returned to his home. When he entered the house, Zhang Dongmei and Pan Magia were nowhere to be seen. He only saw his wife waiting for him in the living room. Seeing her husband's tired look, Lu Jiu walked over to wipe his sweat and said, "Husband, let's go to my place." Li Chenmo locked the door and nodded. The two went to the bedroom, locked the door, and Lu Jiu led them to their own space. Because her husband was tired, she prepared a hot bath and said, "Husband, after taking a bath, soak for 30 minutes to relax your muscles." MHMM. While her husband was taking a shower, she prepared dinner. After dinner, the two read some books before going to bed. Beiji will come to get snacks tonight, so after Lu Jiu wakes up, she prepares some scallion pancakes, dumplings, and steamed cake before she takes his husband out of the space. The sun had just set when they emerged from space. Since they couldn't sleep, the two sat on the stone table in the front yard, drinking tea and chatting. At the same time, Zhang Dongmei was busy cooking in the kitchen, while Li Jingsu was responsible for taking care of the fire. For dinner tonight, she prepared pig blood soup, coarse-grain pancakes, and a bowl of meat porridge for Father Li. After her family moved to live with Father Li, she took charge of taking care of the housework so that her father-in-law could rest and recuperate. Since it was not the peak season, Li Chen's and their sons would help her work, so she did not feel tired at all. After cooking, she brought the food to the living room. She put the food on the table and said, "Father, husband, Xiaoroqian, dinner is ready." Not long after, Father Li walked out of his room. Although he looked frailer than before, he slowly recovered, gained some weight, and looked much better than when he was hospitalized. Looking at the soup and meat porridge, Father Li said, "Eldest daughter-in-law, next time you should cook more meat. The second son and the third son sent a lot of meat and food over, so you don't have to worry too much." Zhang Dongmei smiled at Father Li and said, "Father, those are given to you by the second and third brothers." Father Li waved his hand and said, "Since we live together, there is no need to calculate it so clearly." Although Zhang Dongmei still feels it's better to save the food, she doesn't refute Father Li and nods, "I'll listen to Father's words." Knowing that she was used to a frugal life and was a little bit stingy, Father Li sat down without saying a word. After Li Chen's and Li Jingqian washed their hands and took their seats, they entered the living room and started eating. While eating, Li Chen said, "Father, my third brother's fertilizer is really good. After using his fertilizer, the pests disappeared and our vegetables grew faster than before. Since it is so good, should we report it to the team leader?" Father Li thought for a while and said, "No need. He has already reached an agreement with some families on this matter, and it is no secret. Bringing it up to him will only bring trouble to ourselves." Li Chen's felt that his father's words made sense, nodded, and said nothing more. After a while, Father Li looked at his grandchildren and asked, "Xiaoroqian, Xiaoroxu, how are your studies?" Li Jingqian swallowed the food in his mouth and said, "Grandpa, I learn a lot of new knowledge every day. But the teacher said we need to buy more books to note down the course subjects because the textbooks cannot be taken back to study." Hearing this, Li Jingsu nodded and added, "The teacher also praised my brother and me because we learn quickly." Hearing what they said, Zhang Dongmei was a little worried, while Li Chen smiled and said, "Father will go buy some books for you too. However, you must concentrate on your studies and don't let me down." Li Jingqian and Li Jingsu were both happy with their father's words and said in unison, "Father, we will not let you down." After dinner, Father Li took the children back to his room, while Li Chen's helped his wife clear the table and wash the dishes. When the two squatted in the backyard, Zhang Dongmei said, "Husband, we don't have much money anymore. If you buy more books, we won't have enough money to pay for school tuition." Li Chen's looked at her and said, "Wife, no matter what, we must support our son in studying. Only by studying can they have a bright future. As for money, I heard from the third brother that he and his wife made a lot of money selling snacks. You have a share this time, and you will earn enough money for the tuition." Thinking of the snacks they made during the day, Zhang Dongmei said, "Husband, fortunately, we work with the third brother and his wife. If we made the snacks ourselves, I don't think we could make money. The snacks made by the third sister-in-law are not only beautiful but also very delicious. But those ingredients for snacks are very expensive. I don't know if we can make a lot of money this time." After hearing her words, Li Chen smiled and said, "As long as we can make some money, it's enough. Even if we only have 1 or 2 yuan a day, we can earn 30 to 60 yuan a month. The money is enough for our children's tuition fees and father's medicine." Zhang Dongmei nodded after listening to his words. Her husband was right. She was sure they could earn at least 2 yuan a day. With this conclusion, the stone weighing on her heart was relieved. At the same time in the county prison, Yang Lichao sat in the small room opposite Mother Yang. Mother Yang looked at her son with mixed emotions. After the death of her husband, mother and son have been dependent on each other for many years. In fact, she prefers her second son to her eldest son, who was raised by others. However, after the operation, he could no longer continue the bloodline of the Yang family. Recalling her husband's last words, she felt guilty because she had failed her husband. Therefore, she could only blame everything on her second son to make herself feel better. At this moment, she only had hatred and disgust for Yang Lichao. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. Yang Lichao knew that he was now useless in his mother's heart, but he never expected that he would see the hatred and disgust in his mother's eyes. He was feeling disappointed and said with a smile, "Mother, I'm here to see you." "You have failed me and your father. How dare you come see me?" Mother Yang asked angrily. "Mother, I am your son, your blood and flesh. Why do you treat me like this? Do you think it would be better if I died because you still have your good eldest son?" Yang Lichao asked, squinting his reddened eyes. Hearing his words, Mother Yang was stunned and asked in disbelief, "You, how do you know?" Yang Lichao laughed and said with a sigh, "Mother, our mother, I have known about his existence for a long time. Do you know how jealous I was after I found out about him? Why can he live a better life than me? Why don't you do the same for me?" Mother Yang was so surprised that she couldn't speak and could only look at him with widened eyes. "But it's better now. Your most beloved son is now in prison like you," he added nonchalantly. "You, what did you say?" Mother Yang asked with a pale face. Yang Lichao shook his head and said, "I heard that he needs to spend the rest of his life in prison. Mother, you must not have expected this result, right? It seems that blood is indeed thicker than water. He was arrested for violating the rules of private transactions." Looking at his mother's pale face covered in cold sweat, he felt a twisted sense of satisfaction in his heart and said, "Mother, you are a jinx. Your husband was beaten to death after he was caught stealing. Your beloved eldest son was sentenced to life imprisonment. Your eldest daughter-in-law died young and left no son. then you were sentenced to 5 years in prison. He stood up, walked to his mother, leaned down and whispered, "It seems that only I will live well. From today on, we have no relationship with each other. Mother, I wish you a happy life in prison." After saying that, Yang Lichao laughed and left the room. Mother Yang was still stunned by his words. When she heard that Li Chengxun was imprisoned, all her hopes were shattered, leaving only devastation. "No, that's impossible. My son is excellent and he is destined to become a successful man. How did he end up in jail?" she said to herself blankly. "I must find him." She stood up suddenly. But before she could run out of the small room, she was caught by prison guards and dragged back to her cell. She was pushed into the dark cell and fell to the ground. When she raised her head, she found that the prisoners were looking at her with sneers. One of them looked at Mother Yang and said, "Old woman, I heard that your son came to see you. He must have brought you good things, right?" Mother Yang shook her head and said, "No, he didn't bring anything for me." Upon hearing her words, another prisoner came over and slapped her. Due to the heavy workload in the prison, the prisoners are physically very strong. So Mother Yang's face was swollen with just one slap, and blood flowed from her torn lip. She felt her ears ringing and her vision blurred, but before she could recover, her hair was grabbed by the prisoner. Feeling the pain, she stretched out her hand to hold the prisoner's hand and said, "Spare me, my son gave me nothing, I swear." Slap, slap, slap. The prisoners slapped her several times, causing Mother Yang's face to become severely swollen like a pig. She grabbed Mother Yang's hair hard and said, "Old bitch, don't let me say it a second time. Take it out or else." Mother Yang was so frightened by the prisoner's words that she trembled all over, but she really had nothing and could only plead, "Sister, please spare me. I didn't lie to you. You can check my body. There is really nothing on me." The prisoners looked at each other and went to check Mother Yang's clothes. Even when they stripped her naked, nothing was found. The prisoners got angry as they spat at Mother Yang and kicked her in the stomach. After being kicked, Mother Yang turned pale and curled up naked on the ground. She held her stomach and endured the pain. Seeing her pained expression, the prisoners were happy. Since they are unhappy, they would let this old bitch be unhappy too. With this thought, they beat Mother Yang until she fainted before they finally stopped. Unfortunately, no one cares whether the prisoners live or die. As a result, Mother Yang lay on the ground after being beaten, with bruises and wounds all over her body. When she woke up, she wore her clothes tremblingly and curled up in the corner, not even daring to raise her head, hoping that they would spare her old life. Little did she know, her nightmare had just begun. Standing outside the prison, Musique looked at the dark sky as he smoked a cigarette. After smoking, he got in the car and said, "Drive." The driver is his subordinate and very loyal to him. Although he was curious about why the second lieutenant came to this small town, he did not dare to ask. After a long silence, Musique asked, "Have you found any information about that man?" The driver knew that the man Musique asked about was Yang Lichao. He nodded, took the folder from the passenger seat, and handed it to him. "Boss, this is his information." Musique took the folder and flipped through the information. The more he read, the colder his eyes became. When he finished reading the folder, he closed it and said, "You know what you need to do. Remember, keep him alive as long as possible. I want him to live a life worse than death." Hearing his cold voice, the driver shuddered as his words sent chills down his spine. He swallowed and said, "I understand." Musique tapped his knees with his fingers and muttered absently, "Ching-er, I will make him repay you tenfold for everything he had done to you." As the night grew darker, Yang Lichao walked alone on the dirt road back to Zai village. After leaving the prison, he felt uneasy for some reason, as if he was being preyed upon by a wild animal. Whenever he heard a sound, he would be startled and look at his surroundings in panic. When he heard a branch snapping, he turned around and shouted, "Who is it?" He waited for a while but heard no sound and saw no one. He breathed a sigh of relief, patted his chest and said, "I must be thinking too much." But not long after, he felt that his eyes were darkened as his head was covered with a sack. Before he could break free, he was hit on the back of the head with a blunt object and lost consciousness. The moment he fell to the ground, several men grabbed him and dragged him into the car. With the sound of rustling leaves, the car drove away, leaving behind a cloud of dust. No one even noticed that Yang Lich had been taken away. It was dark at night, and Beiji rode a tricycle along a secret road to Zai village. This road is mostly taken by the black market's middlemen. It is a mountain road and far from the official road, so it is very safe. People can easily get lost in the mountains without someone to guide them. Therefore, only those who truly understand the road dare to take this road. Although this dirt road is relatively hidden, It is in good condition as it has been used for a long time. An hour later, Beiji finally arrived at the foothills near Lee Chenmo's house. He parked his tricycle behind a bush and headed toward the house on the top of the hill. He looked around, knocked on the door, and shouted softly, "Brother Lee." Since Lee Chenmo and Lu Jiu had been waiting, they heard a knock on the gate in the silent night. Hearing Beiji's voice, Lee Chenmo walked over and opened the door while Lu Jiu went to the kitchen to prepare the snacks. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Beiji looking around like a thief. "Come in." As soon as he finished speaking, Beiji entered the house and patted his chest. It was his first time picking up goods at someone else's house. Usually, even if someone asks him to pick up the goods, they will meet in a private or secluded place. After locking the door, Lee Chenmo looked at Beiji and said, "My home is far away from my neighbors, so you don't have to act like a thief. Also, next time you can come from the backyard." Beiji nodded and followed him to the backyard. When they arrived in the backyard, Beiji was stunned by the lush vegetables. He looked at the fresh vegetables and couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Just as he was marveling, Lee Chenmo had already returned from the kitchen carrying 2 large bamboo baskets. He placed a bamboo basket on the ground and asked, "Where did you park your bicycle?" After hearing this, Beiji came back to his senses and said, "I parked the tricycle near the foot of the mountain. Let's go." By the time he finished speaking, Lee Chenmo had already walked to the bamboo bridge. Beiji quickly picked up the bamboo basket and followed after him. After crossing the bamboo bridge, he pointed at the bushes and said, "Brother Lei, I parked the tricycle there." Lee Chenmo nodded and said, "Next time, park your tricycle here. This place is more secluded and closer to my home." 5 minutes later, they came to Beiji's tricycle and tied the bamboo basket on the back. Then Lee Chenmo handed him a piece of paper and said, "This is the product list and price. You write down the order and give it to us based on this list tomorrow. In the future, my wife and I will make snacks based on the pre-ordered order." Beiji took the price list, hesitated for a moment, and asked, "Brother Lei, do you and your wife plan to sell your vegetables? According to my experience, the quality of your vegetables can be sold at a high price." Lee Chenmo thought for a while and said, "I will discuss this matter with my wife first, and I will inform you next time you come." After hearing what he said, Beiji felt happy and agreed readily, "Okay, Brother Lei, I'll take my leave first." Noticing that it was almost dawn, he nodded, "MHMM." After Beiji left, Lee Chenmo returned home and locked the door in the backyard. When he walked into the bedroom, he saw his wife yawning with tears rolling from the corners of her eyes. He walked up to her, bent down to kiss her sleepy eyes, and asked, "Wife, why aren't you asleep yet?" Hearing her husband's voice, Lu Jiu fought back her sleepiness and said, "I'm waiting for you. Husband, it's almost dawn, let's go to my space and sleep again." Knowing that his wife was worried about him not getting enough sleep, he smiled and said, "Okay." Lu Jiu held his hand and led the two of them to her space. Seeing his wife's sleepy look, Lee Chenmo bent down and princess carried her to the bedroom. The moment he put his wife on the bed, she rolled to inside and fell asleep. Lee Chenmo took off his shoes, lay next to his wife, and pulled her into his arms. After smelling her familiar fragrance, he closed his eyes with satisfaction. The next moment Lu Jiu woke up, it was already 10 hours later. She opened her eyes and looked around blankly before remembering that they were in her own space. Feeling her husband's warm embrace, she yawned and kissed his chin. When she took his hands away from her waist, Lee Chenmo woke up and said in a hoarse voice, "Wife, sleep a little longer." Lu Jiu was already awake and could no longer sleep, so she kissed his lips and said, "Husband, you can continue to sleep. I want to take a look at the farmland." Although Lee Chenmo was a little unhappy because he couldn't hold his wife while sleeping, he didn't insist and pulled her in for a long kiss before letting go. Lu Jiu was speechless by her husband's actions. Although he was still very sleepy, he could still kiss her so skillfully. After kissing her husband's high nose, she shook her head and left the bed. After taking a hot bath, she felt refreshed and walked to the farmland. Taking a deep breath, the fresh air rushed into her lungs, dispelling her fatigue. She went to the medicinal field to check out ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, saffron, lavender, echinacea, evening primrose, flax, etc. In addition, she also planted many trees with medicinal value, such as ginkgo, hawthorn, maple, etc. Since she had a lot of fertile land, she used 40% of the farmland to grow various trees and medicinal plants. After checking the automatic sowing, seed breeding, and harvesting settings, Lu Jiu opened the store and checked the seed list. When she scrolled to the bottom, she saw several trees that had been listed as endangered and even extinct in a previous life. When she saw the seeds, she was ecstatic. Although the price was very expensive, she still gritted her teeth and bought it. For 100 saplings, she needed to pay 1 million gold coins. Thinking about the money in her account, she opened the wallet icon. At first, she thought she would have run out of money because she had no daily tasks to get gold coins. But when she saw that her money was not decreasing, but increasing, she was stunned. "What's going on?" she muttered in confusion. Out of curiosity, she opened the task panel and saw that the blank page before was now full of completed and ongoing tasks. When she opened the ongoing daily task list and saw the task, her eyes widened in disbelief. She read the tasks one by one inside. She didn't expect that making her husband happy would bring her so many rewards. Even cooking for him can make money. Every time she kisses her husband deeply, she will receive 500,000 gold coins, with a daily limit of 10 times. If she completes the task, she will receive a random reward. Kiss him on the cheek, chin, eyes, or elsewhere, and she'll earn 5,000 gold coins, with a daily limit of 100 times. If she completes the task, she will receive 2 million gold coins as an additional reward. Her cheeks and ears instantly turned red just thinking about how many times she must kiss her husband to finish the tasks. In addition to kisses, there are also hugs, hand-holding, compliments, and many sweet interactions daily tasks. If she takes the initiative, she can get an additional 15% bonus reward. She didn't know whether her space was a system or a magic artifact that gained consciousness, but these tasks are too perverted. If she really kissed her husband like that, she would definitely turn him into a beast and be eaten by him. Not to mention so many kisses, just one deep kiss had already made her lips swollen and her tongue sore for a long time. Since she couldn't bring herself to plaster her husband for kisses every day, she closed the task panel and decided to finish other small tasks. After taking a few deep breaths, Lu Jiu finally calmed down and bought some more saplings. Lu Jiu thought the tree would take a long time to mature, so she was surprised to see that the tree was already 1 year old when she planted it. The medicinal trees she planted before were all 500 years old, because she bought these trees directly, not saplings. She didn't know that her space power was improving, not only because she got the luck of the original soul and Zyro Yiking, but also because she changed many people's fate with her food and drink. Although it was indirect, she also accumulated a lot of merit from it. At this moment, with her luck and the identity of the male protagonist's true love, she can be considered a half-female protagonist. Therefore, the world itself has treated her differently from before, which also explains her luck. In other words, her existence is similar to that of Heaven's daughter-in-law. Lu Jiu thought for a long time, but still couldn't figure out the reason. So she put this matter behind her and regarded it as a fluke. When she got home, she saw her husband coming out of the bathroom, looking refreshed and handsome. Thinking of her daily tasks, she walked up to him, kissed her husband's chin and said sweetly, "Good morning, husband." Li Chenmo's heart turned into a soft mess when he heard his wife's sweet voice. He leaned over and kissed her forehead, and said with a doting smile, "Good morning, wife." After calculating the time, Lu Jiu said, "Let's have breakfast first and then go out." MHMM. Since everything was available in the space, she prepared an English breakfast for the two of them and squeezed some fresh juice. She thought her husband preferred Chinese food, but she smiled when she saw that he ate Western-style food with gusto. Her husband is very easy to raise and not picky about food at all. Seeing his wife looking at him with a smile, Li Chenmo raised his eyebrows and asked, "Wife, why are you looking at me like this? Is there something on my face?" Lu Jiu shook her head and said, "Husband, you are so handsome." Hearing her words, Li Chenmo was stunned for a moment, coughed, and said shamelessly, "Only today do I understand what the phrase, 'full just by looking at a beauty,' means." Lu Jiu was confused by his words and asked, "Husband, what do you mean?" Li Chenmo looked at her silly expression, reached out to pinch her cheek gently and teased, "Wife, don't just look at me. You should eat your food." After hearing his words, she realized that she hadn't eaten much because she was too immersed in looking at her husband. She hurriedly lowered her head to eat in embarrassment. The tips of her ears were red, and she didn't notice her husband's smug smile. After breakfast, Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo left the space. It was just dawn when they appeared in the bedroom. While Li Chenmo went to the pig pen, Lu Jiu went to check the chicken coop and water the vegetable garden and the peach tree. After Li Chenmo cleaned the pig pen and fed the pigs, he came back to help his wife harvest the vegetables. While harvesting, Li Chenmo said, "Wife, Beiji asked me if we have any plans to sell the vegetables." Lu Jiu put the lettuce on the bamboo basket, looked at her husband and asked, "Husband, what do you think? I will follow your decision." Hearing her words, he looked at the vegetables thoughtfully and said, "Our vegetables are harvested every day, but we can't eat them all. Then let's sell them. Lu Jiu looked at the thriving vegetables and nodded, okay. If she remembers correctly, after the household responsibility system is implemented, the prices of grain, meat, and vegetables will slowly drop. Then from 1985 to 1988, due to slow growth in agricultural production and stagnant food production, agricultural product prices rose sharply, leading to high inflation. In 1994, food prices rose by about 32%, and grain prices rose by about 51%. So if she wants to make a lot of money, now is a good time to sell more grain, meat, and vegetables. Thinking of the pigs they raised and the work points, Lu Jiu said, "Husband, how about we sell all the grain from the production team later? As for your father's share, we can use the grain in my space instead." Li Chenmo thought about the fertilizer used by the production team and his father's situation, and nodded, all right. While the two were busy harvesting, Huzi and Beiji were busy counting money. Beiji was tidying up the money, while Huzi's fingers were doing calculations quickly. The sound of abacus echoed in the room for a long time before finally stopping. After finishing the calculation, Huzi clicked his tongue and said, "I didn't expect we could make so much money in one day." Beiji counted the money and asked casually, "Boss, have we made 1,000 yuan?" Huzi shook his fingers in front of Beiji and said, "It's more than that. Not counting other things, we earned 1,019 yuan from snacks alone. Including meat paste, jam, and roasted chicken, we made a total of 1,820 yuan. Beiji's hand stopped and he looked at Huzi with wide eyes. He looked at him doubtfully and asked, "Boss, are you kidding me? We have been doing this for more than 8 years and the highest we can earn is up to about 800 yuan a day. Can we earn so much?" Huzi took the money from Beiji and said, "If there is tonic wine, we might be able to earn more." When Beiji heard this, he was stunned for a moment and asked, "Boss, we have earned so much, how much did Brother Li earn?" "It should be around 6,000 to 7,000 yuan, Huzi said casually. After deducting his own shares, Huzi put the remaining money and a piece of paper into a bag and said, "I'm going out. Remember to lock the door when you leave." "Boss, where are you going?" Beiji asked.